Hi, this is Swan from Swan Amity Studios. We are working on our bag for the summer scrap elimination, week 5. And now what we are taking a look at is how one corner, as we finish the top of the bag, is a little different from the other corner. Coming into the side panel, we are stitching along, putting our binding on. You can see that's just on the top portion of the bag. And as we add the side panel in, we stop 3/8 of the way before we get to the edge, backstitch a little bit. We turn our binding, and as we add the side panel, we go over the top of the side panel and continue stitching along. You've seen how we turned the bottom corner. Now, how do we turn this last corner? A little bit differently from how we got into the top of the side panel. Now we need to come out of the side panel and finish up going along the last side, or the last top side of the bag. Let's take a look at that. As we come up to the top, we know where to stop already. We don't have to mark 3/8 of an inch this time because I bind at 3/8 of an inch, so we need to stop right as we come up to the binding. If you want to feel for your finger there, where that is, and put a little pin in there so you can also visualize it as you're coming up to it, I think that's useful. And we're going to stitch right up to that pin that marks the edge of the binding. I slow down a little bit as I come up to the pin, and I'm going to back stitch just a little bit and then stitch back up to the binding edge and break thread. Now, to come around this corner, we want to make sure that we are able to start going along this direction, but without the side panel in the mix anymore. So as we do that, we are going to kind of open up that edge. Take some of my pins out so it all moves. We're going to open up that edge. We're going to come around the top and give ourselves a little extra space. So you can see I'm kind of pinching that in the space, and then I'm going to turn the edge. I want to keep that corner in line with my other corner still, so that when I turn this, see how there's going to be a little room in there, like a little pocket. And then I'm going to stitch along this direction. Now this will be a little bit of a trick because we also want to come back and stitch up to the final top of that. So here, now that we have our little pocket, we've got a little extra room in there. I want to put just a little pin to remind me that I'm going to stop so I can go back and finish up the side. Make sure my binding is in line with that top edge, just like that. And I'm going to first just stitch a little bit into that space, and then we're going to stop and come back to the side and finish closing that up. This will be probably the most awkward portion of finishing your bag because you've got a lot of little dimensional elements now that your bag is starting to have a structure. I'm going to go ahead and drop my presser foot, needle down, and I'm going to once again reverse into that bulky section and then stitch back towards my pin again. And I'm going to break thread. I'm going to come back and finish this side because if I were to turn this binding over now, there'd be a little hole in this corner. I'm going to take my pins out, and I'm going to come back and just stitch straight up that last portion of the side so that there is no little hole. I'm going to start that about 3/4 of an inch back along my previous line of stitching and finish that up all the way to the edge. backstitch just a little bit so nothing will come out as we turn our binding. And now we can come along and finish the inside edge of the last portion of our bag. We're going to go ahead and bring those two tails together and complete our binding. I like to use the binding tool, which is my favorite binding tool option. It's this one here, which is the binding tool from TQM Products, the Quilters Mercantile. Absolutely my favorite binding tool. Terribly easy to use and with all the instructions written on it, so you never have to make a mistake. I'll be using that to close up my binding, attaching the straps to my bag, and we'll be all done. Thank you so much for joining us for the Summer Scrap Elimination Project. Stay tuned for week 6, where we finish up and we enjoy all of our fabulous guest designers.